Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. Today, I wanted to scoop up everyone. And what I mean by that is I wanted to explain how to end the endemic. The existing structure has been hoping to reach the point where the pandemic has gotten to be endemic. In other words, it's in the population. They can't stop it, but they're expecting it to just become innocuous, something that people will get every year. Do you remember when Donald Trump said, he talked about how it'll just come every year and not to worry because it'll just come every year. People will get it, and then in the springtime it'll go away. But that wasn't something that was ever going to work. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is how to end the endemic. Not just the pandemic, but the endemic. Okay. When he was talking about the fact that it would go away every year, he was talking about something that an endemic virus that comes back every year. And in the springtime it goes away. Now, why? What would that be? The thing is, in the winter time, he was talking about the Spanish flu, which is 100 years. It happened 100 years ago. Excuse me. 100 years ago or so, the Spanish flu started as a result of, it started in a British training camp in the northern part of France. Basically, if you saw the movie, what was it, 1918, where the planes are coming down and strafing the field, that's when it started. That's when it was created. It was manifested into the physical when people equated flying machines and there had always flying machines and machine guns. Okay, there had always been, like, all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci, all the way back. But Leonardo da Vinci drew his drawing of a flying machine, and people always wanted to fly like birds. And he took his drawing and he figured out what a flying machine would look like. Well, when Wilbur and Orville Wright achieved sustained flight at Kitty Hawk just a few years earlier, they used that as the flying machine, not as a way to just go up and look and see and be a bird and fly around and everything. They used it as a weapon in war. When you have a new invention, you have an idea, but then it breaks into a sense of duality where you have a plan, and then on opposing the idea on the planning circle, you have conflict resolution. It solves a problem, but then as it evolves around the planning circle, it on the opposite side of the planning circle from plan is conflict resolution. So the only way to get rid of the endemic of the Spanish flu is to deal with flying machines and stop using them as weapons. Okay, then the endemic stops. You see, every year people get into airplanes. You're going to go someplace at Christmas time, and all these people are jammed. For example, traveling for the holidays, the busiest time of the year, everybody is going to be jammed into this little space. And then you have people coughing, you have people, they recycle the air. So the flying machines are at that point in time, people are going, oh no, I'm going to get the flu. This is the perfect space for me to get the flu because I'm in this confined place. Everybody's sick, everybody's traveling, and that's how it has maintained a sense of endemicity. Is that the word? Okay, it's been endemic in the population, and it comes back, as Trump said, every winter, and then in the spring it goes away. Why? Because people stop flying. Everybody, they're sitting in planes, and the planes aren't necessarily full. And if they are, they're going someplace warm and sunny. They're not going someplace maybe cold and snowy. The idea of endemicity has to do with maintaining a belief structure that is going to stay in the population. But once you remove the root cause of the problem, it's no longer endemic. So what is the root cause of COVID-19? I'll tell you what's the root cause of COVID-19 is the battles of Armageddon. And it's the reason why our first, and I'll explain that in a minute, the first potential event, and I've talked about this in previous videos, the first idea was that in the Iraq War, it created when no weapons of mass destruction. See, the games go on, power games go on for a period of time until you play them on an innocent person, and then it collapses your power base. So that's what happened. When there were no weapons of mass destruction, it collapsed the U.S. power base, and that's when everybody started to jockey for power. So at that point in time, the United States, there was a group of people, it created this schism. So Omicron, is that basically like a cold? Do I have a cold, or do I have another case of Omicron? That's because it's endemic in the population, becoming more and more. The peaks, instead of being real high, are getting lower, and they're not as long. But at the same time, what happens is we have to stop that. Okay, so when the exit strategy, when George W. Bush preemptively struck Iraq and blamed Saddam Hussein, but there were no weapons of mass destruction, he collapsed the U.S. power base, and all these other countries like Russia and China, they believe this is their century to shine, and they're doing everything they can to do that. There was the rise of ISIS. ISIS is basically another behind a world leader who is trying to become the next emperor of the planet. Because now that the communication is so much and people are dependent on each other, like for the internet and things like that, and the cloud and cybersecurity, you have an idea, you have to deal with security issues. Okay, what we're dealing with is the reaction of this preemptive strike that sent off, because it devolved as a genocide, it sent off ripples of effects, and all these effects are coming down. But what happened then is that that kicked the planet, because it was the whole world involved with that in some way. The ripples of effect drew in every person on the planet. What we have to do is figure out how to stop the schism that's tearing people apart. When somebody in Wuhan, China, equated people and snakes, they're going, look at what is happening now in the media. It's just, instead of, you have media organizations that are reporting the news, and that's the classic form of media. But then it's become commentary where people are just blasting the other side over and over and over again. It's become very contentious. So what we have to do to end the pandemic, is to address the root cause of it, which is the schism. But we also have to deal with ending the endemic, which is how it comes back and it stays. Because right now, there is no spring. There is no, if you're flying in a flying machine with a whole bunch of people at Christmas time or during the holidays, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's hard to get airplane tickets unless you go way in advance. You have a situation where with this pandemic, because of the root cause of it, there it was flying machines, and all you had to do was stay on the ground. Okay, but that means that people are going to travel by car or whatever. Flying machines, you're breathing all the recycled air all the time. And here we have, and that's why we have like the masks and things like that, where it filters the air. To solve the problem of the endemic, we have to not only address the root cause of it, but we have to have a way to break the cycle of it so that it doesn't keep on. Because there is no cycle that, like Donald Trump said, well, it'll be here in the at the holidays in the winter time, then it'll go away. Not the same thing. We have the schism that is tearing apart the planet, and the whole idea. Now I'm going to address something here. I have my Armageddon series books. We are in Armageddon. We are in the end times, which is when a pandemic is a global pandemic that is based on something that's affecting every person on the planet, and that is Armageddon. These are the end times. They talk about the end of the democracy. So the battles of Armageddon, the first one, I'm not going to take them out of these bags because these are the bags that I'm using. These are the books that I channeled in about 2007. This explains the first battle of Armageddon is when two people are sitting in a field and one is taken and the other is left behind. Well, what we're doing, I'm talking now about the schism that's tearing apart the people. What caused the schism? When Saddam Hussein stood on the principles that he was the president of Iraq and that you didn't have the right to come in here, that they were part of the UN, and basically they had he was complying with sanctions and he was doing all these things. Basically, he was standing on the principles. But what happened is George W. Bush went down into the power games at that point in time. One was taken and the other was left behind. The Christians have believed for a long time that they would be automatically saved. No, because everybody plays the power games. These are the 7 deadly sins. So far, nobody has... the power games are the 7 deadly sins. And so far, how many people do you know have overcome death? People die when they believe they can't get their life. So this is where we are now, is a matter. People are fighting for their lives. The first battle of Armageddon is principles or power. The second battle of Armageddon is deceit and illusion. The grand lie. The power games, the grand lie. These booklets explain the deceit or illusion idea, the grand lie. People angry that somebody's lying. And then it's like these ripples of effects that go out. The third one is sacrifice and crucifixion. These are my amateur quality books, and I have to change the covers of them. So I'm setting up. These are the books that I channeled for the amateur quality people, but I'm going to share these ideas because if you go on my website, my store, you can see that these are, you can read the catalog. You don't have to worry about this kind of thing. The overview idea is in the catalog. So the sacrifice and crucifixion. Sacrifice and crucifixion. Now that doesn't mean that crucifixion is not that you're necessarily nailed to a cross. The idea of crucifixion is that character defamation, you could say. The fourth battle of Armageddon has to do with betrayal. And then the next 2 battles, there's 6 battles altogether. One has backed into the corner. These 2 are simultaneous, and these are not the right covers for them. backed into the corner and the point of no return. So when people, let's say, I'm not going to go into that in greater depth, because basically it comes to the point where people are going to say enough is enough and they just walk away. Then the person who they walk away from has to find a way to solve this problem. Okay, so but how do we solve this problem now? This has to do with this schism, how it happened, how it evolved. But how do we get everybody back together again? How do we solve this problem? Does it come to armed rebellion and revolution and the idea of another coup? Then this time it's successful, and because the other side, one side has all the guns and the other one doesn't. That's not a peaceful resolution of this. That's just the people reacting to this schism and saying, I don't like what you're doing. And if it gets to the point where I am going to kill you because I don't like what you're doing, because you're interfering in my life, maybe that person isn't interfering in their life at all, and it just seems that way. Remember, we're talking about the grand lie. We're talking about deceit and illusion and betrayal. So if you betrayed somebody and you don't even know it, how does this happen? So now what we want to do is figure out how to bring that together again. And that's where the exit strategy for Iraq government proposal comes in. The first idea is to make disputes between nations in the courts rather than fighting in the war. So basically, it's all working out okay in terms of the courts going through it legally, because it's really hard to complain about that. We all agree that the courts are basically okay, except for the people who don't want to stand on the law and who are causing problems. Okay, but the thing is, it's the world peace marketing strategy that will bring people together. The plan for world peace basically the plan for world peace is divided, you could say, into 3 different sections. Actually, it's more than that. It'll just keep on going, but 3 main sections for over the next 20 years or so. The first one is that the plan has been introduced, opened up to debate, and it's a third option, because when you're backed into a corner, you see only 2 options, and neither of them are tenable. What you have to do is, if you're here and there's this force coming after you, if this is you right in the corner and there's this force here, you can come out over the top of it, or you can get squeezed. Or, those are the 2. This is what happened to Kim Jong-un when Donald Trump got into office and used the basically threatened him that he was sending off nuclear weapons, and he was backed into the corner. He could either starve or he could wage a nuclear war. Neither was tenable. So what he did instead is he turned around and he accepted the idea of the international government. There was a little door behind him. Instead of fighting this force that was coming after him, he couldn't win that. He decided he was going to just go through that little door in the back, and he was going to solve this problem. That's what happened. Okay, and this is the same thing that's happening with let's say any time you're backed into the corner, there's the option that you have is to do what's in everyone's best interest. The conflict resolution, if there's a plan and conflict resolution, deal with conflict resolution. So that's where our brochures come in for that. But where we are now with the exit strategy for Iraq is there's the three parts, and that is before it's been accepted, but the plan is just going out and being open for debate. People are finding out that if they're backed into the corner, that the plan is the way out of the problem. The second section of this is when the plan has been accepted and the other alternatives go away, like waging war. Is Joe Biden right now going to wage war with Russia? Or is it going to be something where Russia doesn't like the plan for the international government, but basically it's gotten to the point where this is the only way out because he can't fight everybody, or to let it continue on the way it is, and people just, when they hit that point where they attack an innocent person, then they go down in power. If this plan for world peace is going forward, then is Russia going to commit, where people are talking about it and debating it, is Russia going to commit to a war threatening, rattling his sabers? And where it worked before, but now it doesn't anymore. He collapses his power base. Okay, so the exit strategy for Iraq starts out with, I've been printing more of them here. It's the brochure, and all four groups of people. It's separated. The schism has separated everybody into four groups of people. The people who stand on the principles, the people who've gone down into the power games, the people whose lives are affected, and then those who function for their own interests. And these are the people down here who start rebellions. So each one of these ideas, each one of these rows is going to be discussed. It's like a path you can take to create the life you want. Let's say it's creating heaven on earth. You can create heaven on earth. These are like the pearly gates for heaven. Okay. So the top row is for the people who stand on the principles. That first battle of Armageddon. Okay. The second row is the people who went down into the power. The third row is people whose lives are affected. And the fourth row is people who function for their own interests. So let's say that let's say a father is a businessman and he's working late, and his wife is a trophy wife and she's worried for her financial support. So she goes down in the power games, and then how about the Democrats, the Republicans who are focused on money and power, and then the independents, and then the people like Donald Trump who function for his own interests. This group down here are 180 degrees from where they think they are. They think that they're functioning outside of their capacity. So you look at the interviews that they've had, and the people, they don't know what they're talking about. It's almost ludicrous what they're saying, because they don't have any clue what they're saying. They're just listening to Donald Trump and his lies, and they believe him, and you can't change what they believe. So that's where this group of people comes in. They function for their own interests. They're light bearers, but they're in the dark. They're influencers for their own group of people, but they don't have any clue what they're talking about when it comes to government. They might be really good at real estate. That's what that one woman was. Everybody knew her as somebody in the real estate. Or how about even military? Or how about even police people? People who have their own interests, but they don't watch politics. They have believed, they come home late at night or after jobs, and they sit down and they watch Fox News, and they think they're informed about what's happening out there, and all it is just a bunch of stories or let's say propaganda, or that's not the right word maybe. Basically it's just weaving an agenda, and they're they believe it because it's there and they're watching the news. It's the news for them. I understand that because when I was working all the time as a dental hygienist, I'd go to work early in the morning and then come home late at night. I would fix dinner, I would do my laundry, and I would go to bed. I might watch the news for a little while, and I wasn't educated about the news. I understand working people don't always have the time. And then when the President of the United States says there's a problem and we need your help, all those people who have prepared for this, I understand that too because I have read a lot of science fiction stories and such about about let's say the end times, preparing me for that, what it would be like to have to live out in the woods. I'm being a prepper, that kind of thing. I understand that idea, but I also watch the news all the time and get different sources of information. When you have a single point of light, basically that there's darkness all around it. You have to have light from all over, and that's why we have to bring in the channels, because if Donald Trump says he is the savior of the world or whatever, and everybody believes him, and that all these things are going to happen, that's not necessarily true. What happens if you wipe out all the news organizations except one? And then that's what happens in a lot of dictatorships, is they have only, and ironically in Russia it's called Pravda. It has been their main source of news, which means truth. Okay, they're telling you the truth. Okay, is it the right news or is it propaganda? All right, now I know that this is something that's going on. So let's get back to this. When there's these four groups of people that come through, and everyone has a different perspective, a different idea. People's lives are affected. People who are focused on money, power, like the Democrats, the Republicans, the Independents, and then let's say the Trumpians. If there's a new election going on for president, 25% of the population might be Democrats, true Democrats, 25% Republicans, 25% Independents, and 25% Trumpians. So where do we go next? How's anybody going to be able to solve this problem? And that is that over the next several years, things are going to have to change to fit this idea, because you can't change what people believe. So the World Peace Marketing Strategy helps to unify everybody again based on this idea. The movements create the same four divisions, segments of the population. So basically, this is the world peace, where the world peace movement has started. We're all going to be working to bring world peace to end the pandemic, the endemic, which is where it comes back. We get it every year and then it comes back, except it's never going to do that, because we have to, until we solve this sociological problem that triggered this, we have to, it'll just keep kicking off one variant after another, and the scientific community is going to be running around trying to get booster shots. Right now, in a year or 2 years, they're already working on the fourth booster shot, and for Omicron too, they're already starting. The second spin-off variant is now starting to come. They had Omicron, then the Omicron 1, so to speak, or 2, and now there's another one that's coming out. So how many of these variants and booster shots are we going to get? We're going to be every 4 months we're getting one? It isn't every year we're going to get them every 4 months? How many people around the world can afford to do that? In like small countries, in third world countries, they don't even do that. They don't even have the first shot. Okay, so we have to start to address this idea of unifying people again, ending these battles of Armageddon, and then let's say the end times is the end of a cycle, and then the beginning of a new cycle is when the world peace movement goes forward. So all you have to do is go through these gates, one of these gates, then each one of these gates has, I'm working on this brochure, I'm working on the catalogs for each of these rows. That's my next thing that I'm working on now. I have them, but I need to tweak them again before they can go up for, I have to kind of like prove them with the people in the organization. And then the next step is to, for me, is to come up with the projects that are associated, that are in the catalogs, and the packets of information so people can actually understand step by step as they're going through each of these steps what is involved with each of these. The What Can I Do catalog is for the first one. This is all on the website, okay, in the World Peace Marketing Strategy. If you want to go look at it, you can. I'm still tweaking it and still kind of perfecting it based on this idea of ending the endemic and making it possible for people to go forward. But we're going to start to think of this. If you want to prevent this endemic, if you want to help stop and break it apart, join the World Peace Movement. Okay. Then, so if you stood on the principles, let's say Bernie Sanders, we all watched him in the 2016 presidential primaries. We saw him talking about principles and principles and principles all the time. That's what he does. And then, but Hillary Clinton, that affected her security and support. She was there. This was her chance to win. This was her chance to be there. And in the primaries, she went down into the games. Okay, then the next one is the independence. The independence of the you have the people in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who stand on the principles, like Bob Corker and Jeff Flake and Liz Cheney. They're standing on principles. Okay, and when they do, the other people who are in it for the money and the power go down into the games. It affects their financial support, so they have to go down. The whole idea is not to rely on Donald Trump, but to create your own financial structure, assume responsibility for your own financial structure, foundation. Okay, then the independence. So the whole world separated into a schism. The political parties have separated into a schism. They're schisming now. The people inside the schism are schisming. Inside the parties, like the people stand on principles. What principles are they standing in? Why are they standing on the principles? So each of this group is schisming. This group is schisming. This group is schisming. Okay, and then it all comes down to the individual level, and that is when each of us is responsible for our own financial support. We're responsible for creating the life we want. If we accept a job that isn't based on our talents and gifts, we make things worse. If it's based on it, so we have to create our life, and we have to when we are like I said about me being a dental hygienist and not keeping track of the news, and I was a fourth row person. I was an expert, so to speak, as on a dental hygiene, but they didn't know what was going on in the news. All right, so basically here what we have is a way to unify people. This is like the movement has started. The World Peace Movement has started. When this comes about, this is going to be classes in our crisis center. When when the exit strategy for Iraq and the books, I'm working on my books, the professional publishing team, then the crisis center comes in, and then we start with the classes. I can't do everything by myself, so I have to bring in the other channels and work on that in the crisis center. When people come in, they'll be able to go through these ideas. I'm going to, as I said in a previous, just a recent video, there's a like a foundation block, and then as I'm working on the first idea, then that allows the second block. So the 3 blocks, you have 2 together, and then that allows one up here like steps. And then when the next one comes up, so there's the idea, the plan, the proposal, then bringing in my people for the organization to be the teachers, to be the people who are responsible for that. And then that solves their problems, independent members. And then the next one is bringing in the people. So that is for me, it's the exit strategy for Iraq. For the next person to come in, that is the crisis center. That's the Constitutional Amendment Project. Then the next block up, which allows the 3rd block in the foundation to come up, then that is the crisis center, and that's when this comes forward, because we have more than that. We'll have all these books coming in, and then the exit strategy for Iraq, and then the idea goes out to, like say, the 10 tour that goes out, and that is to bring in the people who are part of this idea. Okay, so you're welcome to check out the website, my website or organization website. Check out the books where these come through. These are part of the professional publishing team. These are channeled books and they are actually part of a separate my business. Okay, I'm a channel. I channel books. But I also have the money from these books goes to the organization and to pay for that. I'm a nonprofit business, basically, but have to work with IRS and to solve that problem. So these books go through there. The government proposals, everybody works with the organization. And then the next one is the newsletters, and I'm working on a new catalog for the newsletters. Each of the projects has a newsletter. So I've been very busy lately working on all these things and trying to get them ready to turn them over to other people who can do it better than I can. All right. So if you want to walk away from the pandemic, and if the existing structure has said, well, it's going endemic now, we're out of the crisis. We're not out of the crisis because the Spanish flu is still killing people. As a dental hygienist, I had a patient who was a woman probably in her 50s, and she died of the Spanish flu. After 100 years, she died of the Spanish flu. She was a very vibrant person and died of the flu. It's still happening. People are dying from it. People will be dying from Omicron, and that is not necessary anymore. We can stop the endemic, not just the pandemic, but the endemic, which is going to be what Trump told us about the winter and how in the spring it'll just go away. It doesn't go away because the virus is still there, out there. The thought form is still there, and we have to change that. We have to change the worldview of this idea. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to keep working on this and keep you informed. The information is out there. You can start to break apart the idea, and you can join the World Peace Movement. If you don't want to be informed about what's happening in the news because it's getting to be kind of enough is enough. Wherever you go, the news media, it's getting to be kind of depressing. So join the World Peace Movement. And this is where just start to be informed and like, share, and subscribe. But most of all, share, because this information is important. If you have family members who are susceptible to the pandemic and the endemic, coming back, and because they rely on the science, then we have to address that root cause of the problem, which is the schism. It's now a movement. We're going to shift that idea to the world peace movement, and we're going to leave this rotten pandemic and the virus in the dust. Okay, like, share, and subscribe, but most of all, share, because this information is important. Thank you.